Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week. And if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. For today's tutorial, we're making a cable stitch sweater. Nothing beats the classic, and there's nothing more classic than a crochet cable sweater. Textured, warm, and made with love. Speaking of, if you're looking to make a crochet sweater you're sure to love, you are in the right place. We have hundreds of modern crochet tutorials and patterns, with more dropping twice weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now, it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 535 grams of yarn. That's 1,185 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 6mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order. Enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us if you are right or left-handed. I'm sure you all know I'm right, but I can slowly write and slightly crochet with my left. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 6 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, double crochet, treble crochet, and double treble crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this sweater started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 6mm hook and start off by making an odd numbered chain that reaches from the side of our hip across our stomach to the side of our hip. Now it does need to be a minimum of 51 chains, and I need roughly 16 inches or 41 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain of 57. Now that we have our chain, we're going to do one more additional chain that will count as the base chain. Then from here, we're going to do our first half double crochet row. So block off that last chain and do a chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then from here, yarn over into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, insert with a half double, so pull through, yarn over, pull through 3, and continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain. We are back and our row 1 is complete. Our row 2 is going to be a single crochet row. So chain 1, that doesn't count as a stitch, that's a turning chain. Flip our work and then just put 1 single crochet into every stitch. Let's do this once more. Into that next stitch, insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, continue with 1 single crochet into every stitch. Alright, so we are back. We have just finished up our first 2 rows. Now before we get started on our detail row, which starts with our row 3, we're all going to need to insert our stitch markers into some places so we know where each of our sections starts and ends. So first things first, what we're going to do is make sure that our hook is along the left side, and making sure that we're starting this off by counting from the right. We're going to take the original amount of chains that we made, so that odd number, and then we're going to cut that in half. So since I originally made a chain of 57, that cut in half is 29. So counting from the right, I inserted my stitch marker into the 29th stitch, and that is my middle stitch. We should all have just 1 middle stitch for everyone, no matter what size we're making. Now we're going to start with inserting our stitch markers into the right side of our piece first. So we're all going to start by inserting our stitch marker into the second stitch away from our middle stitch marker stitch. We want to make sure that we are not counting that stitch, so making sure that we're not counting our middle stitch marker stitch. Here's 1, here's 2, and insert your first stitch marker into that stitch. Then once we have that stitch into place, we are then going to take the amount of stitch that we have that's nearest to our middle stitch marker stitch, making sure we're not counting that stitch marker stitch, all the way to the right. We're going to take that total amount of stitches and we're going to count that in half. So as an example, for me, I have a total of 28 stitches. divided in half, that is 14. So from the right side, I'm going to insert my stitch marker into the 14th stitch. Then from that stitch marker that we just inserted, this is going to be where our big cable is, so we all need to count a total of 9 stitches, working towards the middle stitch marker. So counting that stitch marker stitch, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And now that we have this, we just need to separate this last end right here, but this part is going to be completely up to you. What we're going to have is our Alpine stitch detail, our twist, and then an Alpine stitch detail. So as an example, it's going to look a little bit like this. All we need to do is just make sure that we are blocking off 5 stitches for our twist portion. Then we can have whatever amount of stitches that we want for each of our Alpine stitch details. Now I wanted for them to be the same for every single section that I had working across my piece. So all I did was just adjusted my stitches so that I had roughly the same amount of stitches for my Alpine stitch detail. And then I just made sure that I had 5 stitches for my twist. So for those of you that have my numbers, from the outer edge, I counted in 4 stitches and inserted a stitch marker. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. Then from that stitch marker, I counted out 5 for our twist portion. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we have successfully blocked off half of our piece. Now what we're going to do is just insert the same stitch markers that we have on this side, and then once we have that completed, I'll meet you guys back so we can actually get started on our detail portion. And just as one last really quick tip, when it comes to inserting our stitch markers into the left side, we are going to have 1 additional stitch along the edge, and that's just so we can close it off with a regular half double crochet, because remember we do have a total of even amount of chains. So now that everything is nice and sectioned off, let's get started with our row 3. So we're all going to start with a chain 2 and flip our work. We're going to start with an Alpine stitch detail for everyone, so we're all going to start with 1 half double crochet into the first stitch from our previous row. Then right after that, it's going to be a front post double crochet. So yarn over. Every post stitch is going to be worked into our previous odd number row. So since we're working on row 3, we're going to be inserting our hook into our row 1 for our post stitches. So to do a front post double crochet, all we're going to do is yarn over and then insert our hook into the half double crochet from our previous odd number row. Now we want to make sure that we're inserting our hook into that second half double crochet that we made, making sure that we're not counting that edge chain 2. And we're going to skip that first half double crochet because the half double crochet that we just did counts as that stitch. So into the next stitch, insert underneath the body of that stitch, through the other side, yarn over, pull through. Then once we have these 3 loops on our hook, we're all going to pull up nice and tall, then yarn over, pull through 2, then yarn over, pull through 2. And that is our first set of stitches, which is just going to be a half double and front post double. Now for our Alpine stitch detail, it's just going to be a repeat of these 2 stitches until we reach our stitch marker. So just to do this again, yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet. Now from our previous row, we are going to be skipping that following stitch because that front post double counts as that stitch. If we work into there, we will accidentally be increasing. So just into that following stitch, insert with a half double crochet, then yarn over again, preparing for a front post double. We're going to skip that following stitch from our row 1 because that half double crochet counts as that stitch. Then into the next, bring our hook down, underneath the body of that stitch, through the other side, yarn over and pull through. Then from here, we're going to pull up tall to get the same height as the half double crochets. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now since I have reached my stitch marker stitch, I am completed with my Alpine stitch detail. But for those of you that need to do some more stitches, just continue on with your half double and front post double until you reach your stitch marker like me. And for the following rows, just to make sure that we know which section goes where, we do want to make sure that we're inserting our stitch markers into the last stitch of each of our sections. Now from here, once we do reach our stitch marker, we're going to do our twist. And it's going to be the same for every size. So getting that started, it's going to start with a front post treble crochet. That's going to be our dividing stitch. So yarn over twice. Inserting our hook underneath that following stitch from our row 1, we're going to bring our hook down, underneath the body of that stitch and through the other side. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through. Then once we have that, we're going to yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2. And now that our dividing stitch is completed, let's get started on the actual twist portion. So yarn over twice again. We are going to be skipping that following stitch from our previous odd number row, and then into the following 2 stitches, 1 front post treble crochet into each of those. So like I said, we're going to skip 1 stitch, into the next, insert, pull through, then again yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2, another front post treble crochet into that following stitch, so yarn over twice, bring your hook underneath through the other side and pull through, then yarn over and pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook, just like that. Then to do the actual twist portion, we're going to work back into that skip stitch with another front post treble. So yarn over twice. Bring your hook underneath the body of that skip stitch, pull through, and again yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. And that is a twist, and to complete the twist, another front post treble crochet just like the first one that we did, which is our dividing stitch. So yarn over twice. Insert your hook underneath the body of that next stitch, pull through 2, 2, and 2. Now we have just finished up our twist. Now from here we're going to do another alpine stitch detail. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a half double crochet again. So just into that following stitch from our previous row, we're going to yarn over, insert with a half double crochet, and then we're going to do a front post double crochet as well, so that it can match this alpine stitch detail over here. So just do the next one as well, yarn over. We're going to skip that following stitch from our previous odd number row because that half double crochet counts as that stitch. Into the next, insert with a front post double crochet. And from here, we're going to continue on with our half double and front post double until we reach our following stitch marker stitch. So we have just completed our first 3 sections for our row 3. So our alpine, twist, and alpine stitch detail. Now we're going to do our cable. So it's going to start with 3 front post double treble crochets. So yarn over 3 times. Then taking a look at our row 1, we're going to skip the following 3 stitches. So here's 1, 2, 3. We're skipping over those. And then into the following 3, 1 front post double treble crochet into each of those. So again, skip 1, 2, 3. Into the next, insert your hook underneath the body, yarn over and pull through. Then from here, yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. There we go, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. Then 1 front post double treble crochet into each of the following 2 stitches as well. So just to do it a little bit quicker, yarn over 3 times. Into that following stitch, insert your hook underneath the body of that stitch, and yarn over and pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. Then another front post double treble crochet into the following, so insert underneath, pull through, and then yarn over, pull through 2 till we have 1 loop left on our hook. Then once we have that, we're going to be putting 1 front post double treble crochet into each of the 3 stitches that we just skipped over. So yarn over 3 times again. Into that first skip stitch, bring your hook underneath through the other side, pull through 2, 2, 2, 2. Then 1 front post double treble crochet into the following 2 stitches as well. Now we have just completed our 3 front post double treble crochets. Then to complete the big cable, into the next 3 stitches, 1 front post double crochet into each of the next 3. So yarn over once, into that next stitch, insert, pull through 2, yarn over into that next stitch, pull through 2, and then 1 more with another front post double crochet. Just like that. And now we have our big cable completed. Now it doesn't look like much now, but we are going to have to do a few more rows so we can see what it's going to look like. But that following section that we're going to have is another alpine stitch detail. So all we're going to do, since this is a row 3, all of our alpine stitch details is going to start with a half double crochet. So yarn over. Into that next stitch from our previous row, insert with a half double crochet. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. Then, just like the previous one, a front post double crochet, so pull through, pull up tall, pull through 2, and pull through 2, and continue this until we reach our following stitch marker stitch, which should be the stitch marker stitch that's nearest to our middle stitch. Our Alpine stitch detail is complete. Now we're going to do our middle twist, which is going to be done the same way as our other twists. So we're going to start with our dividing stitch, so yarn over twice. Into that next available stitch from our row 1, we're going to insert pull through. Then yarn over, pull through 2 until we all have 1 loop left on our hook. Then to do our twist, yarn over twice. Skip 1 stitch from our previous odd number row, into the next, insert with 1 front post treble, then into the next with another front post treble. Then working back into that skip stitch with a front post treble again. Then finish this off with another front post treble crochet, which is now our dividing stitch. Now we have made our way all the way down to the middle of our piece with our middle twist. From here, it's basically going to mirror everything that we did here on this side. So just for this first row, I'm going to talk you guys through it. So right after our twist is going to be another Alpine stitch detail, and it's going to start with a half double crochet. So into that following stitch with a half double, into the stitch right after that with a front post double crochet, and we're going to continue that until we reach our following stitch marker stitch. Now that our Alpine stitch detail is complete, we're going to do our big cable. So how that's going to work is we're going to start with a set of 3 front post double treble crochets. So yarn over 3 times. Skipping our following 3 stitches from our row 1, skip 1, 2, 3, then into the following 3 stitches, 1 front post double treble crochet into each of those. Now that we have that, working back into those 3 stitches that we skipped over, 1 front post double treble crochet into each of those. And now that we have that twisty portion for our big cable completed, we're now going to finish it off with 3 front post double crochets into the following 3 stitches. And now that our big cable is completed, we're going to do our Alpine stitch detail. So just into that following stitch, starting with a half double crochet, we're going to insert with a half double, then a front post double, and continue that until we reach our following stitch marker stitch. Our Alpine stitch detail is complete. Then we're going to do our twist. So yarn over twice, that's going to be our dividing stitch, and start with 1 front post treble crochet. Then to do the twist, yarn over twice. Skip 1 stitch from our previous row, then put 1 front post treble crochet into the following 2 stitches. Then once we have those 2 front post trebles, we're going to be putting 1 front post treble into that 1 skip stitch. Then now that the twist portion for our twist is completed, then finished off with our dividing stitch, which is always going to be a front post treble crochet. Then from here, what we're going to do is our Alpine stitch detail until we have 1 stitch left. So all together, yarn over. Since we're working on our row 3, we're going to start with a half double crochet into that following stitch, then a front post double crochet, and continue that until we all have 1 stitch left. My Alpine stitch detail is nearly complete. We should all have 1 stitch left. Now, it doesn't matter what stitch we land on, which is a front post double or a half double crochet for that second to last stitch. The last stitch is always going to be just a regular half double crochet to close off the row, just to secure everything down. And that's it. Our row 3 is now complete. Now for this portion, every even number row is going to be a single crochet row. So chain 1, flip our work, and then put 1 single crochet into every stitch until we reach the end of the row. And just as a really quick tip, we haven't done any increases or decreases yet, so we should all have the same amount of stitches as total chains that we made. We are back. Our row 4 is complete, which was our single crochet row. Now what we're going to do from here is our row 5. So let's all chain 2 and flip our work. Now we're all going to start with our Alpine stitch detail. Now when it comes to doing our Alpine stitch detail, our stitches are going to be staggered from our previous row. So as an example, if you guys can see my stitches, we started with a half double crochet for our previous odd number row. Now since it started with a half double crochet, we're going to start this row with a front post double crochet. So we're going to yarn over into the half double crochet from our previous odd number row, because remember we're working on row 5, so we're going to be inserting our hook into our row 3 now. We're going to bring our hook down underneath the body of that half double crochet through the other side, pull through. Then pull up tall to get the same height as the chain 2 and finish up our front post double crochet per usual. And that is our first stitch. Then we're going to do a half double crochet. So yarn over into that next stitch, which we are going to be skipping one stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as that stitch. Into the next, insert with a half double crochet. And that's it. From here, we just want to make sure that we're repeating our front post double and half double crochet, making sure that our stitches are staggered from our previous alpine stitch detail, because if we put a front post double crochet on top of a front post double crochet, that'll actually give us some ribbing, which is pretty but not what we want for this piece. Continue on with our front post double and half double crochet until we reach our stitch marker or until we reach our twist detail. Now my alpine stitch detail is complete. We should all have the same amount of stitches as our previous alpine stitch detail. Now we're ready to do our twist. Now our twist is always going to be the same no matter what, so let's just blaze through this really quickly. We're going to start with our dividing stitch, so yarn over twice. Into that next stitch from our previous odd number row with our front post treble. Then we're going to yarn over twice again, skip that following stitch from our previous odd number row, and then into the next, insert with another front post treble, then into that following stitch another front post treble crochet. So this is per usual so far. Then one front post treble crochet into that skipped stitch to get the twist, then one front post treble crochet into that following stitch, which is our dividing stitch. Then now that we have our twist detail completed, we have our alpine stitch detail to do. So since we're working on a row 5, all of our alpine stitch details is going to start with our front post double crochet. So yarn over, we're going to find that first stitch from our previous alpine stitch detail, which should be a half double crochet for everyone, and we're going to insert into there with a front post double crochet. So pull through, pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. Then into that following stitch, insert with a half double crochet. From here, continue with our front post double and half double crochet until we reach our following section to do, which is our big cable. Now our alpine stitch detail is complete. Again, I have the same amount of stitches as my previous alpine stitch row. Then from here, what we're going to do is just all front post double crochets. So just as a really quick tip, each of our rows where our alpine stitch details starts with a front post double crochet. When it comes to doing our big cable, we're going to be doing just one front post double crochet into each of those stitches, so a total of 9 front post double crochets for everyone. So just to get this started, yarn over into that first stitch when it comes to doing our big cable with a front post double crochet, into that next stitch with another front post double, and it could be a little hard to see the following stitch because it will be wrapped slightly underneath following stitches, but we all want to make sure that we're doing our 9 front post double crochets for this big cable portion. We are back. We have just completed our 9 front post double crochets. Now from here, we're going to do our alpine stitch detail again. So again, we're going to start this with a front post double. So into that half double crochet from our previous alpine stitch row, insert with a front post double, then into that next stitch with a half double, and continue this until we reach our following section, which is our twist. We are back. Our alpine stitch detail is complete. Now we're going to do our twist. So yarn over twice, into that following stitch with our dividing stitch. Remember, our twists are always going to be the same. Skip one stitch from our previous odd number row, then one front post treble crochet into the following 2 stitches. This is my second one right here. Then into that one skip stitch, one front post treble crochet worked back into there, and then from here, our dividing stitch, which is always a front post treble crochet. We are back. We have just completed the first half of our row 5. We've made our way all the way down to our middle twist. Now, just like our row 3, we're going to be basically mirroring everything that we did here on the other side. So just to talk you guys through it, we have just completed our middle twist. We're now going to do our Alpine stitch detail, which is going to start with a front post double crochet, and then into that next stitch, a half double, then continue this until we reach our cable stitch section right over here. Now for this cable stitch section, it's going to be one front post double crochet into each of the next 9 stitches. Our cable stitch stitches are now complete, which was 9 front post double crochets. Now we're going to close off the row with our Alpine stitch detail. Like I said, this is going to start with a front post double, then a half double crochet, then continue this until we reach our next twist detail. Then to do our twist, we're going to do our dividing stitch, which is a front post treble, skip that following stitch and into the following 2 stitches, one front post treble crochet into each, one front post treble crochet worked into that skipped stitch, then close it off with our dividing stitch. Then the last section for everyone is going to be our Alpine stitch detail. That's going to start with a front post double and continue to repeat our front post double and half double crochet until we all have 1 stitch left. Our Alpine stitch detail is nearly complete. We should all have 1 stitch left, and the last stitch of every odd number row is always going to be a half double crochet. Now, like I said in one of our previous clips, every even number row is going to be a single crochet row. So chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 single crochet into every stitch. We are back, and our row 6, which was our single crochet row, is complete. Now from here, we're going to get started on our row 7. Now since we're getting started on our row 7, the only difference is really just going to be the big cable stitch detail. But the Alpine stitch detail and the twist is going to be a repeat of our row 3. So let's get that started. We're all going to chain 2 and flip our work. So just to do this first Alpine stitch detail together, we're about to get started on our row 7, which when it comes to doing our Alpine stitch detail is going to be a repeat of row 3. So we're going to start with a half double crochet into that first stitch, then a front post double crochet. Now remembering that our stitches do need to be staggered, we're going to yarn over. Into the half double crochet from our previous Alpine stitch detail, we're going to insert with a front post double crochet, pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. Then from here, we're going to continue on with our Alpine stitch detail until we need to do our twist. Now our twists are pretty much always going to be the same. It's going to start with our dividing stitch, then our twist portion, then our dividing stitch again. And since we're working on row 7, we're going to then do our Alpine stitch detail, making sure that it starts with a half double crochet, just like our row 3 did, until we reach our big cable stitch detail, and then I'll meet you back so we can do that together. So we are back, and we have done our Alpine stitch, twist, and Alpine stitch detail, and now ready to get started on our big cable. So what we're going to do is our row 7's big cable stitch detail is going to start with 3 front post double crochets. So yarn over into that first cable stitch from our previous cable stitch detail, insert with 1 front post double, into the next with another front post double, then into the next with another front post double crochet. Then from here, we're going to skip the following 3 stitches from our previous cable stitch detail, then into the following 3 front post double treble crochets, so just 1 into each. So like I said, we're going to skip 1, 2, 3. Into the next with 1 front post double treble, so just continue to yarn over it and pull through 2 until we have 1 loop left on our hook. And into the following 2 stitches, 1 front post double treble crochet into each of those as well. And now that we have that, we're going to work back into those 3 skip stitches with 1 front post double treble crochet into each of those stitches. And that is our cable stitch detail. From here, the rest of this row is basically going to be the same repeat as row 3, but doing the same big cable stitch detail once we reach the cable stitch detail on this side. So as a quick refresher, each of our Alpine stitch details will have the same amount of stitches as our previous rows, and it's going to start with a half double crochet. Then our twist, and then once we reach our big cable stitch detail, we're going to do the same stitches that we just did here together. Continue on with the rest of our row, making our way all the way down, and the last stitch of this row is always going to be a half double crochet. Then I'll meet you back at the end of the row. We are back. We have all just completed our row 7. Now our row 8 is going to be a single crochet row, so chain 1, flip our work, and 1 single crochet goes into every stitch. We are back. Our first 8 rows are now all completed. Now when it comes to doing our row 9, it is going to be a repeat of our row 5. So just to talk you guys through it, our Alpine stitch detail is going to start with our front post double crochets. Then we're going to do our twist, another Alpine stitch detail, making sure it starts with our front post double crochet. And then when it comes to working into our cable stitch detail, it's going to be 1 front post double crochet into those stitches, so a total of 9 front post double crochets. Then we're going to continue this until we make our way all the way down, making sure that we close off the row with a half double crochet. Once we reach the end of the row, I will meet you back. So we are back. We have all just completed our row 9, which was an exact repeat of our row 5. Now, just to do the following row, just to make sure we all have it down, it's going to be a single crochet row, so chain 1, flip our work, and then put 1 single crochet into every stitch. We are back, and we have just completed our row 10. Now, what we're going to do from here is a repeat of rows 3 through 10 until we have a portion that reaches our underarm. Now, if you guys would like to go back and review any of the rows or any of the sections, they will all be linked down in the description. But like I said, just continue to repeat rows 3 through 10 until we have a portion that reaches 1 inch underneath our underarm. So placing this first row right where we'd like the bottom of the sweater to be, keeping in mind that we will have a bottom band as well. Continue on repeating rows 3 through 10 until we reach an inch underneath our underarm, like I said, and I will meet you back right when we're about to get started on a repeat of row 3. We are back. I have just completed the height of my cable stitch detail. I have a total of 50 rows, and this height is roughly 14 inches or 36 centimeters. Now from here, we're going to start working on our underarm portion. So all we're going to do is the same rows that we've been doing with the same repeats. The only difference is that the beginning and the end of the rows are going to have a decrease of 2 half double crochets. So just to get our following row started, it should be a repeat of our row 3. So we're going to chain 2 and flip. Now to do our decrease, we're all going to yarn over. Into that first stitch, pull through. Next stitch, pull through. We should have 4 loops on our hook, so from here yarn over, pull through all 4. Then just to do the following stitch from our previous row should be a front post double crochet, so just do a half double crochet into that next stitch. Then from here, just continue on with our Alpine stitch detail until we reach our twist portion. Then from here, continue on with the rest of the row, and I'll meet you back when we have 2 stitches left. Alright, so we have made our way all the way down. We have left the last 2 stitches. Now, like I said, our last set of stitches is going to be a decrease of 2 half double crochets as well. Now, I do want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into the edge of this row on both sides, just so we know where the decrease starts. But now from here, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and then do our single crochet row, so just 1 single crochet into every stitch. And then I'll meet you back. Our first decrease row is complete. Now from here, all we're going to do is just basically continue to repeat rows 3 through 10, but for every odd number row, we are going to start and end it with a decrease of 2 half double crochets, and for every decrease row that we have, we should have 2 less stitches than our previous row. So basically, everything in the middle is going to be the same as our repeats, and the decrease of 2 half double crochets are going to be the same whether if we're worked into our twists or into the cables along the beginning or along the end. We just want to make sure that we are decreasing along the edges. But we're just going to continue to repeat our decrease rows for our cable stitch rows and our single crochet row until we then have a portion that can reach from 1 inch underneath our underarm, making sure that we're placing that stitch marker 1 inch underneath our underarm until this reaches about 2 inches beneath the base of our neck. And I'll meet you back right after we finish up a cable stitch row. I am back, and the decrease portion of my front panel is complete. Now I have a total of 65 rows, and my height is now roughly 18 inches or 46 centimeters. Now from here, we're just going to finish up with our shoulder portion. Now the shoulder stitches are actually going to be completely different for everyone because everyone's sections had a different amount of stitches, but I'm just going to talk you guys through it, and it's going to be fairly easy because we aren't going to have any increases or decreases. So first things first, since we all should have ended right after a cable stitch row, what we're going to want to do is insert our stitch markers into the stitches that we have that's right at the edge of the base of our neck. So I inserted my stitch marker into the 12th stitch from both edges. And I have a total of 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters in between my stitch markers for my neckline. Now what we're going to do from here, we're going to chain 1 and flip our work. Put 1 single crochet into every stitch until we reach our stitch marker, and then I'll meet you back. So we are back. My single crochet row until we reach our stitch marker is complete. From here, we're going to continue to repeat our row repeat of rows 3 through 10 until we have a portion that reaches all the way to the top of our shoulder. I will meet you guys back right after an odd number row, but just remember that this portion doesn't have any increases or decreases. We just want to make sure that we're keeping up with the cable or the Alpine stitch detail, really whatever section you have in between right here for your shoulder section, just so it's a continuous pattern all the way up. But once this reaches the top of our shoulder, I will meet you back. We are back. Our right shoulder is complete. I have a total of 75 rows. Now my total height is roughly 22 inches or 56 centimeters. Now we're going to do another shoulder on the left side. So getting this side started, we have to do our single crochet row first. So we're going to flip our work over so that our cable stitch detail is faced down. We're then going to insert our hook into our stitch marker stitch, and working out towards the outer edge, start with our single crochet row. Then once we have that, chain 2 and flip our work. Then just like this first shoulder portion, this shoulder portion isn't going to have any real rhyme or reason to it because everyone's sections do have a different amount of stitches. So all you guys are going to do is continue to repeat rows 3 through 10s, cable stitch and Alpine stitch detail until we have the same amount of rows as this first shoulder portion. Once we do a chain up 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you back. So we are back. Both our shoulder portions are complete, and now the entirety of our front panel is finished. Now what we're going to do from here is the back panel, but that's going to be done pretty simply. So I actually have a decent amount of it already finished, so I'm going to be doing a small sample size with you. Now getting started on the back panel, we're all going to start by making a chain for the same amount of chains that we made when we got started on the front panel. So for me, that was a chain of 58. So like I said, I'm doing a small sample size with you, but once we have our chain, we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then from here, yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet into that chain that we blocked off, or the third chain from our hook, with a half double. From here, continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain. Now that our row 1 is complete, we're going to get started on row 2, so chain 1, flip our work, and now every even number row for the back panel is going to be a back loop slip stitch row. So all together, find that last stitch from our previous row, we're going to insert into that back loop. When we have those 2 loops on our hook, yarn over and gently pull through both loops on our hook. We want to make sure that we're not tugging too tightly, otherwise the following row is going to be too tight to work into. Let's do that again. Into that next stitch, insert into that back loop, yarn over, gently pull through everything. Continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Our row 2 is now complete. From here, we're going to repeat our back loop half double and back loop slip stitch rows together. So just chain 2, flip our work, and just do the first back loop half double crochet, yarn over. Into the last stitch from our previous row, we're going to insert into that back loop, or the loop that's furthest away from us. Yarn over, pull through 3, so back loop half double per usual. From here, continue with 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch. At the end of the row, chain 1, flip our work, 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Continue to repeat these 2 rows with no increases and no decreases until we have the same amount of rows that we made that led all the way up to our underarm. I'll meet you back once we have the same amount of rows as our front panel's bottom portion, and then I'll meet you back so we can do our back panel's underarm. We are back. I have just completed my back loop half double and back loop slip stitch rows for the same amount of rows that we made for the first portion of our front panel. So that's a total of 50 rows for the front. So now I have a total of 50 rows for the back. Now we're going to do the same rows, but now just a decrease into the beginning and into the end of every half double crochet row for the same amount of underarm rows that we have for the front panel. So what we're going to do, we should have all ended right after a slip stitch row, so chain 2 and flip your work. So getting started on our first underarm row for the back panel, yarn over, into that first stitch's back loop, insert, yarn over, pull through, next stitch's back loop, insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4, and continue with 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last 2 stitches, and then I'll meet you back. We made our way down with our first decrease row, leaving the last 2 stitches. Now to do this decrease together once more, yarn over, second to last stitch is back loop, pull through, last stitch is back loop, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 4, and since this is our first decrease row, we are going to need to insert a stitch marker into the edges of this row. Now our following row is going to be a back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases. So chain 1, flip our work, put 1 back loop slip into every stitch, and that's it. From here, continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we have the same amount of underarm rows as the front panel. Then I'll meet you back so we can finish up with our shoulder together. We are back. The underarm portion for my back panel is complete at the same amount of rows as our front panel. Now all we're going to do from here is the rest of the height of our back panel. So the rest of this is just going to be back loop half double and back loop slip stitch rows with no increases and no decreases until we have the same amount of total rows as the front panel. Once we have that, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you guys back and then we can seam everything together and get started on the sleeves. We are back. I have just completed the shoulder portion of the back panel. Now everything is all complete for the back panel, so now we're going to seam it together. So let's go ahead and grab our front panel and place it on top of our back panel. So placing our front panel on top of our back panel, we're all going to want to make sure that the detail that we have is faced in on itself, so that once we flip our work right side out, all of our seams are going to be along the inside. Then we're going to be inserting our hook into the top corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. We're going to pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure, and we're going to do a single crochet seam. So finding that first stitch into the front panel, insert, finding that next stitch into the back panel, insert, and single crochet around everything, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches into the front panel left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, repeat on the other side, and then I'll meet you back to seam up our sides. So we are back. Our shoulders are all seamed up. Now we're going to seam up our sides. Now for the sides, we're going to make sure that our work is still flipped wrong side out, so all of our details are along the inside. And we're going to be inserting our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Then all we're going to do is pull our yarn through, do a chain up of 1 to secure, and all we're going to do is put 2 single crochets into every side half double crochet, making sure we're working into both the front and the back panel. And we are going to be skipping the single crochet within the front panel and the slip stitch row within the back panel. So let's do the first few together. So everyone's first side row is a side half double crochet row. So we're going to find that top loop within the front panel, insert, same top loop within the back panel, insert, and we're going to single crochet once, and into that same top loop within both the front and the back panel, insert again. It should be a little bit easier since everything is already gathered, single crochet again. Now we're going to skip over our front panel's single crochet row and our back panel's side slip stitch row and find our following half double crochet row. This is mine right here within the front. Insert, find the following side half double crochet row within the back panel, which this is mine right here. Find that one, find that top loop, insert with 2 single crochets, and that's it. We're going to continue with 2 single crochets in every side half double crochet row until we reach the row right before our stitch marker stitch. Once we have that, do a chain up of 1 and cut, repeat on the other side, and then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We have just completed seaming everything up, and now we're going to get started on our sleeves. So first things first, we're all going to make sure that our work is now flipped right side out, right side up, meaning all of our seams are along the inside, and we can see our detail along the front and the back panel. Then we're going to be inserting our hook into any one of the side rows that we have that's nearest to our side seam within our armhole. Then from here, we're going to single crochet along the armhole that we made for ourselves. So all we're going to do is put 2 single crochets into every side half double, 1 single crochet into every side slip, or if you're working into the front panel, 1 single crochet into every side single. So let's get this started together. When our hook is into place, we're all going to chain 1. Now we are going to be skipping that first side slip or side single, whichever panel you're working on first, and we're going to work directly into that side half double crochet row. It should be the side half double crochet row that our first decrease is into or our stitch marker is into. So I'm going to take this out because I don't need this anymore, and into that side half double we're going to insert with 2 single crochets. So there's 1 and then there's 2. Now my following side row is a side slip. If your side row is a side single, that's fine. Just find that top loop and insert with 1 single crochet. Let's do that again. Everyone's next side row should be a side half double crochet row. So find that top loop and insert with 2 single crochets. Then your next side row, which should be a slip or single, find that top loop and insert with 1. Continue doing this, making our way all the way up. When we worked into our last side half double crochet row right before we reach our shoulder seam, I will meet you back. So we have just single crocheted our way up our underarm. We have just worked our way into our last side row right before our shoulder seam. Now what we're all going to do is chain 1 and then insert a stitch marker into there because that is going to be our middle row. Then from here, continue on with our same single crochet row. So 2 single crochets into every side half double, 1 single crochet into every side single / slip, depending on what pin you're working on, and you're just going to make your way all the way down. Then I'll meet you back. So we have just completed our single crochet row and we have slip stitched into that chain space. Now what we're going to do from here is make a chain the length that we'd like for our sleeve to be. Now you can make this as long or as short as you'd like. I'd like for mine to be a full long sleeve. So I'm going to start by making a chain 55, and that's just about 16 inches or 40 centimeters. Once we have our chain, we're going to do a half double crochet row, so block off that last chain and do a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch. Yarn over into that chain that we blocked off, or into that third chain from our hook, insert with a half double crochet, and from here continue with 1 half double crochet into every chain, leaving the last one. So we're back. We put 1 half double crochet into every chain, leaving the last one. Into that last one, we're all going to do an increase. So put 2 half double crochets into that last chain. Now what we're going to do from here is 1, make sure the work is still flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to be working clockwise or to the left. We're going to slip stitch into that second stitch into the base. So we're all going to start by counting up 1 and 2. Into that second stitch into the base, insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch into the base doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then everyone's following row is going to be a back loop slip stitch row, so it's going to be pretty much the same as the back panel. So just to work our way up to that row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, still doesn't count as a stitch, and flip our work. And from here, finding the last stitch from our previous row, not those slip stitches into the base, put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. When we reach the end of the row, we're all going to chain 2, flip our work, put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, making sure that the last stitch does have an increase of 2 back loop half double crochets into it, and then I'll meet you back just so we can connect it into the base together once more. We've made our way down. We should all have 1, 2, 3 rows nearly finished. Into the last stitch from our third row should be an increase of 2 back loop half double crochets. Now we're just going to connect it into the base. It is going to be done exactly the same way as our previous row. So just to do it together, count up 1, count up 2. Into that second stitch into the base, insert with a slip stitch. That does not count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and that's it. From here, we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows, making our way all the way up until we reach our middle stitch marker stitch. And then I'll meet you guys back so then we can work our way down the other side of our sleeve. So we are back. The increase half of our sleeve is complete. Our last row should have been a half double crochet row, and it should have been worked into the stitch that's right before our stitch marker stitch. Now into our stitch marker stitch for everyone, no matter what size we're making, is going to be a back loop slip stitch row, and that's going to be per usual. So just slip stitch into there, put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, making our way all the way down. Then to do the following row for the decrease side of our sleeve, chain 2, flip our work. Put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last 2 stitches, and then I'll meet you back just to show you how we're going to do our decrease and connect it into the base, even though it's going to be done exactly the same way. We are back. Our middle row is complete, and now we're going to get started on our decrease row, so we just put 1 back loop half double crochet into every stitch, leaving the last 2. So what we're going to do is a decrease of 2 back loop half doubles, so yarn over. Into that second to last back loop, insert pull through, last back loop, insert pull through for 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4, and connecting it into the base is going to be done exactly the same way as the other side of our sleeve so far. So we're just going to count up 1, 2 stitches into the base, slip stitch into that second, then slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and that's it. From here, we're just going to continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, I'll meet you back so we can seam it all up together. We are back. We have just completed the decreased side of our sleeve. We don't have any more stitches left to work into, so now we're going to seam it up with an outside loop slip stitch seam to make it look like another back loop slip stitch row. So from where we're at, we're going to make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up. We're going to start by inserting our hook into that first available stitch into the front panel and insert only in through that front loop. Then find that next available stitch into the back panel and insert only in through that back loop. When we have all three of those loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through all three. Pretty simple. Let's just do one more. Find that next stitch into the front panel, insert in through that front loop only. Find that next stitch into the back panel, insert in through that back loop only, yarn over and pull through all three. And continue doing this, making our way all the way down. And since we're working our way down towards the edge of the sleeve, I will meet you guys back so we can work straight into the cuff from there. So we are back. We have just completed seaming our sleeve. Now from here, we should have all ended along the outer edge, so now we can just work straight into our single crochet row to prep for our cuff. So all we're going to do, once we've made our way down to the end, we're going to chain one and put one single crochet into every half double crochet row. So we are going to be skipping over our side slip stitch rows. So getting this started, finding our first side half double, insert in through that top loop with a single, skip the next side slip, into the next side half, insert with a single, and that's it. Continue doing this, making our way all the way around. When we don't have any more side rows left to work into, slip stitch into that chain space. So now that our single crochet row is complete and we have slip stitched into that chain space, what we're all going to do here is make a chain the length that we'd like for our cuff to be. I'd like for mine to be roughly 3 inches or 8 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain of 15. So now that we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. And from here we're going to slip stitch into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook. So bring our hook down, into that chain, yarn over and gently pull through everything on our hook. And since we already know how to do our slip stitches, put one slip stitch into every chain. Now that we've put one slip stitch into every chain, we're now going to connect it into the base. So into that next available stitch into the base, we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through everything with a slip stitch. That slip stitch into the base doesn't actually count as a stitch. Then, to work our way up to the following row, we're simply going to slip stitch into that next available stitch into the base. Still doesn't count as a stitch, and flip our work. And from here, make our way down with one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. And that's it. From here, all we're going to do is continue to repeat our 2 previous rows, so back loop slip stitch rows with no increases and no decreases, making sure we're connecting it into the base the same way that we just did, making our way all the way around. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back so we can seam it all up together. We are back. We have just completed our back loop slip stitch rows for our cuff. Now we're going to seam it up together, and it is going to be the same exact seam that we did for the sleeve. So just to talk you guys through it, we're going to make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, right side up. Then we're going to be doing our outside loop slip stitch seams until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up 1 cut and then repeat everything we did here on the other side. So now that both of our sleeves and cuffs are completed, what we're going to do from here is our bottom band. Now the bottom band is going to be done exactly the same way as the cuff. So since the bottom of our piece already have stitches to work into, all we're going to do is insert our hook into any one of the stitches that we have. Then we're going to start with our chain. Start by making a chain the length that we'd like for the bottom band to be. I'd like for mine to be roughly 4 inches or 10 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 20. Then do our same back loop slip stitch rows with no increases and no decreases for the bottom band, making our way all the way around. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, then we're going to seam it up, doing the same seam that we did for the cuff and for the sleeve. So an outside loop slip stitch seam. Once we have the entirety of the bottom band completed, I'll meet you back so we can finish up with our collar. We are back. Our bottom band is complete, including the seam. Now we're going to finish up with our collar. So all we're going to do is make sure that our work is flipped right side out, right side up. We're then going to be taking a look at the back of our piece. We're going to insert our hook into any one of the stitches that we have along the back of our neckline, and we're going to start with a half double crochet row. So we are going to insert our yarn onto our hook. We're then going to pull through and start with a chain 2. That chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch, we just need the height. And into the same stitch the chain 2 is in, insert with a half double crochet, and that's it. We're going to make our way all the way down with one half double crochet into every stitch, and then once we reach the front panel, 2 half double crochets into every side cable stitch row. We are going to be skipping over our side single crochet rows, and we're going to make our way down 1 single crochet into every stitch, working our way back up, 2 half double crochets into every side cable stitch row. Once we made our way all the way around, slip stitch into the second chain that we made when we started off this row, and then I'll meet you back. We have made our way all the way around with our half double crochet row. Now from here we're going to do our ribbing, which is going to be front and back post double crochets. So right after we slip stitched into that second chain that we made, we're all going to chain 2. And working in the same direction that our previous rows worked into, we're going to start with a front post double crochet, so yarn over. Finding the first half double crochet from our previous row, not that chain 2, we're going to insert our hook underneath the body of that stitch and through the other side. Then do a front post double crochet per usual. Now we're going to do a back post, so yarn over. We're now going to bring our hook underneath our work, through that next gap, over the body of that next half double crochet and through the other side. Then from here, double crochet per usual, and that is our back post. Let's do the set once more. Yarn over, insert our hook underneath the body of that following half double, through the other side, pull through. Then front post double crochet per usual. Then to do our back post, yarn over. Bring our hook underneath our work, into that next gap, over the body of that next half double, through the other side, pull through, then pull through 2, pull through 2. From here, continue with 1 front post and 1 back post double crochet, alternating between the 2, making our way all the way around. Well, we don't have any more stitches left to work into, slip stitch into that second chain, and then I'll meet you back. We are back, and our first ribbed row for our collar is complete. Now, I'm just going to be doing one more, and all we're going to do is just extend our previous row stitches. So once we made our way all the way around and have slip stitch into that second chain that we made, we're all going to chain 2. And working in the same direction that our previous row was working into, we're going to start with a front post double crochet because that should be the first stitch. Now all we're going to do is just whatever the previous row's stitches look like, we're going to be doing that on top of it to extend the stitch. So since this looks like a front post, we're going to yarn over, bring our hook underneath that front post, and do another front post. Now to do the next one, which is a back post, we're going to yarn over. Insert your hook underneath that back post, pull through 2, pull through 2, and that's it. Continue doing this, making your way all the way around. Once when you have that, slip stitch into that second chain that we made when we started off this row, do a chain up 1 and cut, and then I'll meet you back. We are back. I have just completed my collar, and now we are all done. The last thing we have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope y'all enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch y'all on the next one. Bye!